Welcome to the Alchemy of Business Show with your host, Steve Rogers. The Alchemy of Business Show is a podcast that mixes practical, actionable business solutions with soulful insights for anyone seeking deeper meaning in their lives and greater success in their work. Steve will be featuring purpose-driven leaders from all walks of life and getting insight into their journeys from failures to triumphs. So tune in to transition, transform, and evolve in every dimension of your business and life. And now your host of the Alchemy of Business Show, Steve Rogers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alchemy of Business Show. We are here helping people find ways to make wiser decisions, to create greater profits in their life and their business, and to have higher purpose and meaning. In bringing in entrepreneurs and leaders and executives that have inspiration and have success and have learned to overcome their own failures, we have a show that today it fits all of those and more. We have Mr. Jaime Nacach here, who is the founder of Virtual Latinos. He is very energetic. You'll see in a few minutes how passionate he is about being an entrepreneur. He's also been in marketing for years, and he's really a self-taught techie. He integrates his creativity into his business strategy, not only for himself, but for all the businesses in which he's run. And he's assisted over 150 companies to grow online and operate 20 to 30% more efficiently. You say, how, may I ask? Well, he's created systems and processes and people, and he also has a digital marketing agency. But Bluminary and a virtual assistant hiring portal called Virtual Latinos. He has like things that cover from not just helping you get virtual assistants and team members that are going to stay with you for long periods of time, but he really understands marketing and sales and marketing and automation expertise in creating lead generation. He very much loves to help people to grow their companies and turn them into truly really kind of agile and more effective expense-driven, but profit-driven businesses. And he likes to help them really become more purpose and competitive in their niche. So Jaime, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was a great intro. Probably the best I've had, to be honest. And I really like the fact that you highlighted, really how what I'm doing is about helping businesses, because that's exactly the reason why I started Virtual Latinos, and we're going to talk about it. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome, Jaime. Well, we met probably a couple years ago now when COVID was at its peak, and I had gone through a couple virtual assistants, and I was looking for somebody that was more focused on what I needed, also on my time zone, which also some was issues. And I don't remember exactly how we met, either through a networking thing or you had prospected me, and I liked your style and your vibe and your positive nature. But I remember, that you always have that smile on your face, either in your pictures or even in your emails. You can kind of see your smile come through. So tell the audience here a little bit more about yourself. I know you obviously focus on Virtual Latinos because of being from Latin America and Mexico City, and you have this experience of being this global entrepreneur who has perspective of a couple different worlds, and you've been able to bridge those together very well. You live in San Diego, but you understand Mexico City which is a city that's unbelievable, where I've been. But tell us about your early days and how you ended up here as a serial entrepreneur.
Sure. Sounds good. Definitely happy to share. So yes, I'm born and raised originally in Mexico City. Been in San Diego for a few years though now. And so most of my experience, let's say professionally, has been in digital marketing. Close to 20 years now. And the company that I first founded is Bluminary, which is a marketing agency. And I really focused on helping really small businesses because that's what I was used to. I started sort of like freelancing since back in high school, doing web design, then graphic design. And then eventually I decided to actually build my own company for marketing. And I always wanted to but mostly focus on those companies that nobody really wanted to work with because they were too small and they needed the most help. So it was really helping lots of moms and pops and lots of small companies. And it came to a point in the business that I realized, okay, listen, there's a lot of competition in San Diego in the general marketing industry. And I either raise my prices, which many people have already told me to do based on already the quality of the work that we were doing, or of course, the other option was to lower costs, right? And so I said, I really don't want to raise my prices too much because I still want to focus on helping the small businesses. So I decided to look at that other route of lowering the costs. At the time, my entire marketing team was all in the US, all US based, which meant US wages. And then I learned about the option of actually hiring people from abroad hadn't actually come to mind for many years. And so after reading a book and learning about it, I did what most other businesses who outsource kind of do, which was to hire people in the Philippines. And I did that, and I did that on my own, not through an agency. So I posted jobs. I spent hours looking at people, lots of applications, lots of processes to go through that. And eventually I hired a total of 3 different assistants from the Philippines. But then I said to myself, why are we hiring people from so far away? Their internet connections are sometimes not stable at all. You can usually tell that they have some sort of accent compared to the Latinos, which is a different type of accent. And because I live in San Diego and I'm from Mexico, I'm like, wait, why haven't we, anybody thought about hiring people in Latin America? They're way closer. And so I literally went to Tijuana, which is a 20-minute drive from San Diego. And I went in there, talked to the people who know the space. And they kind of told me, listen, Tijuana is not a big city. There's not a lot of industry, especially not marketers. You're going to find lots of programmers, lots of graphic designers, but digital marketers, you're not going to find that many. And that's kind of what happened, which forced me in a way to build Virtual Latinos, because I realized that I couldn't get the people through Tijuana. And then kind of my only other option was Upwork, because Upwork has been around for a long time. They changed their name, but at the time, the pricing there was just too expensive. And I realized that that's not going to be what I wanted. And I literally just was looking for a company like the one we built today that was just VAs from Latin America. And there wasn't, except a single other company that worked like a call center. And I'm like, okay, I think there's a huge opportunity here to offer that, to offer virtual marketers. That was the original idea. So that's what I started doing, mostly to hire people for my own company, because that was my goal. And so once I did that, I started to see that not only could I hire people for me, but a lot of more people that are marketing agencies would need them. And, one thing led to another. And we are here today with a whole business now of being a staffing agency of just virtual assistants and virtual professionals from Mexico. So that's kind of the backstory.
That's a great story. Well, that's a lot of history that you have there on this journey. And I know you came to the U.S. at a very young age. So did you know when you were coming to the U.S. Because of either family background or friends or associates at that time that entrepreneurship was in your blood at an early age, or did that come later, that you came from a family that was used to having regular day jobs and working in corporations and companies, and you broke the mold? Or did you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, family of entrepreneurs. I am Jewish and I'm from Mexico, so I'm a Mexican Jew. And yes, not all Jewish people are entrepreneurs, but a lot of Jewish people have been entrepreneurs throughout the history of Jews in general. So yeah, my family came originally from the Middle East, from my dad's side. My mom is Turkish, so Turkish Jewish. And so, yeah, both from my mom's side in Turkey and my dad's side now in Mexico, but originally the Middle East is just a whole line of entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, I've been exposed to entrepreneurship, I guess, my entire life, my grandparents, my parents. And so, yeah, I knew that I wanted to do something on my own eventually.
And as you were coming over, is that, many people with this global world that we live in, specifically you talking about having, virtual assistants for a virtual world. I mean, it was already becoming a virtual world more and more in the last 5 or 10, 5, 7 years or so. But in the last 2 with COVID, even companies and businesses that didn't think they could be virtual, hospitals, doctors' visits, schools, whatever it might be, the world has gone, wow, I guess we can go virtual. And so you've already got this connection with understanding, coming from different countries, having parents with different cultural backgrounds. Was that easier for you or more difficult when you came to the U.S. as a young kid? Because I know how, kids in general, even if they're from the hood and they live where they live, kids always can be brutal and can be tough. So I'm wondering, did that make you question. More scrappy? Did it make you sit back and take observation and then figure out how to fit in? So how did all of that global culture and differences, now that you're using to the benefit of many, was that always a blessing for you, or was it a challenge in the early days?
In Mexico, the Mexican Jewish community is sort of living usually in a bubble for many years until after high school, when most Jewish Mexicans go to a Jewish day school. I did for very little, but then I didn't. So I was exposed to, the outside the Jewish community in Mexico. But even then, when I came here to the US, I was very shocked that I was there's a whole really bag of mix of everything, right? And it was definitely shocking coming from Mexico, where Mexico compared to the US doesn't have, let's say, people from all over the world, at least not back, many years ago. It's, mostly there's Mexicans, right? There's people with different backgrounds, but like you don't see, let's say, white people, black people, Latinos, Asians, like all in one place. So yeah, it was actually like both shocking, but at the same time, like, wow, that's amazing. Like everybody lives here and everybody respects each other, and like people can live together in harmony, right? Which was amazing. So no, I think that only actually helped me in terms of, learning how to work with the whole world and people from all over the place. Specifically, here in San Diego, I'm still part of the Mexican Jewish community, even though it's not Mexico. And yeah, the people here, let's just say they were not as friendly as I expected. They were very hard to break into the little group of friends. So that was hard. It was very hard for me to be here, let's say. So yeah, it was definitely a challenge for me.
And I know you're a family man as well. Did you meet your partner here in the U.S., or was it someone that you knew from Mexico City or from the world that came with you later in years, or you rekindled or anything like that?
Yeah, so my wife is from the U.S., happens to speak Spanish, which is great for me.
That's a good plus. She
didn't grow up speaking Spanish, so yeah, it's a good plus, especially because all my friends and family speak
also,
Spanish.
It always is much more romantic when men speak in Spanish than it is English, so that's always probably a nice plus if she understands what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's very nice. We actually ended up meeting through a special Jewish Mexican event here in California in Big Bear, and so she joined the event and I met her through there, which was very nice. But yeah, we met here in the US.
Got it. And then is your family also become part of the family business, or is this something you do and you run mostly yourself?
No, it's definitely become a family business now. My wife now works with me. My father works with me. My best friend works with me. My sister-in-law now works with us. So yeah, a lot of family members have started to join the business in a way, but it's still all virtual. I mean, I still kind of work on my own in terms of my physical presence. But yeah, we've been happy and blessed to be able to grow and help so many people, both locally, let's say, in terms of my family and friends, and a lot of people in Latin America.
That's great. Well, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left in this segment, but I want to throw out some topics and then come back on the next segment and really dig deep on them. So you mentioned, so I want to talk more about digital media. I want to talk about building companies from small to large, yours and others that you've helped do that through your processes. And then you've mentioned, being Jewish. You've mentioned about different cultures and global stuff. So I want to dig also into one of the things I'd like to talk about on Alchemy Advisors, and we usually get to it in the second or third segment, is this sense of spirituality or religion, and how people in their purpose, because I find that most everybody has some kind of belief in a higher power in something. Either they don't believe, or they believe just in energy, or they believe in Jesus Christ or Buddha, or they believe in Muhammad, or they believe in or whatever it might be. There's a whole mix, which is always intriguing to me. And I'm always interested to find out how people are bringing those beliefs, to where they got to on their path, because a lot of times people are pulling from things that happened in their life that fuels part of their drive, fuels part of their vision, fuels part of their value systems. So I want to kind of plant that seed with it. I want to come back in the next segment and dig on that. In this segment, I also want to dig further and start at the beginning of the next segment, if we could, on this digital space. You said you're in the digital media space for 20 years. I mean, you were like then a pioneer back when it was like people were probably, what the hell is digital media? What is digital?
I will tell you, it has been interesting. Before Facebook, I was the guy who people knew for posting photos online.
So let's talk about how businesses in the last years have had to figure out how to utilize digital media, and what is so different, say when you started versus now. I know that's a big topic, but maybe just give a couple different examples as to how far the digital world has evolved since you've been in this space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think since I started doing, websites before Facebook, and a lot of the build yourself tools like Wix and other tools existed, business has changed a lot. I think that there's a lot more power that people have, let's say, directly, right? That they depend less on somebody to help them do things, and more people can do things on their own, which I think it's a huge, powerful thing for a lot of, let's say, entrepreneurs or people who just want to try something out for business without having to have too much money. And I think I'm definitely one of those stories. I mean, my family has not helped me in anything to do with the business. They've definitely helped me a lot in my life, but when it came to business, I started all this completely on my own without any funding. And it was really thanks to the fact that there's so many tools and technology today that you can learn on your own and you can try on your own. And let's say not depend on a marketing agency or some expert to do things, which helped me grow, right, in what I do. But then eventually also became sort of like a bad thing in this case, let's say from our marketing agency, because a lot of people now started building websites and a lot of stuff on their own and didn't really need an agency, at least not all of them, not those moments. So I'll keep it at that for now.
Okay, got it. Well, I'm intrigued by that because I also have been I was in the real estate business for 25 years before I became a consultant advisor. And in the real estate space, we definitely were experimenting, trying everything. Once you get a listing for an agent, trying to use, obviously, when the internet came about, we went away from the MLS books. They had to have a book to figure out what was listed. But, online stuff, Zillow, social media marketing, text message marketing campaigns, digital postcards that, attached to QR codes. I mean, the world has evolved so much. And so in real estate, I was fascinated when I got outside of real estate and consulting with other companies, how they're using many of these tools and then some at a very high level. So I want to come back and dig into, as you're helping entrepreneurs, what are some of the cool and most effective type of digital things that are out there that either you're using or you recommend other people use to help effectively get there? Because there's one thing about getting your business known, then there's a whole other thing about getting your business with lead generation. Because sometimes it's about Me Too advertising, and sometimes it's about, I just need to get more customers today. What could I do? So let's come back and talk about that, because I'm sure that applies to many people.
Sure.
That sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening in for the Alchemy of Business. We will be back in just a moment. Come back and learn about if you want to create more leads and you want to figure out how to get more presence in your business, and you want to learn about how Jaime's spiritual and religious beliefs have maybe helped craft part of his journey. Come back and listen in. We'll have an exciting next segment. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the Alchemy of Business. We were digging deep here with Jaime on the world of virtual assistants and marketing and being an entrepreneur and starting from scratch to building an empire. So Jaime, let's pop back in. We were picking up on that last segment about how much the digital media world has changed. You were saying that you've been in this for 20 years in the digital space of websites and, I'm assuming getting into SEO and digital marketing. So what have you seen have been some of the most major changes that businesses have had to adapt to in the last decade to try and keep up with this lightning speed change that happens in the digital marketing world? And how do you help your people stay on track, learning that and know what to use and not to use?
Great question. So I basically graduated in 2003. So I think now that I'm looking at the number, yes, it's been exactly 20 years. So my second to last year of high school, I was building a website out of HTML for my high school as a project. And then, that whole journey turned into freelance, into a marketing agency, and today to where I am today. And I think, things change way too fast. That's obviously something that everybody sees. I guess learning how to adapt is the hardest thing, right? And so when we're talking to clients, we're constantly telling them that, you're always going to have to be open to learning to do things differently, because when it comes to digital media and to many things digital, things are just changing way faster than most humans are used to any type of change, including myself. I can tell you that for me, it's been hard in and of itself in trying to keep up with everything that keeps going on. So one of the things that I definitely try to, teach our clients, that I started to teach from the marketing agency world and now into the virtual assistants, it's everything to do with automation, right? So, and then this is me, the guy talking about from a company that hires lots of people, right? You're like, wait, you talk about automation if you hire a bunch of people? Yes, actually, it was my drive to want to do things as much automated as possible while having the best mix of automation and, human help that led me to build this company. So I guess the tip here is everything that I try to do, it's a combination of both using everything that a human can do. That's very, very important, especially soft skills, as well as anything that's repetitive that you can automate to not have to, invest lots of time doing repetitive things. So for example, most clients might think, I can just hire a virtual assistant to do all of the repetitive work that I need to do. And yes, that could be true. But what if you had that person, instead of 20 hours a day just working on repetitive stuff, maybe 10 hours a day working on repetitive stuff, and the other half, they can help you automate things so that you can actually become more efficient, right? So, and this would in a way go against my business, right? Why would I recommend people to automate stuff? Maybe I want them to keep doing manual stuff so they can hire more people, but that's not the goal. The goal is for people to do the best with the time and resources that they have, right? Whether the resources, money, or people, or both. So the biggest tool that I'm a fan of is Zapier. It's a company that I was naturally, I guess, one of the sort of earlier users compared to what it is today. Zapier is a tool that lets you basically automate processes. There's a trigger that makes something start the process, and then there's a bunch of actions. And thanks to that system, I've been able to be where I am today. I mean, I literally can tell you that if Zapier didn't exist as a tool in today's business world, Virtual Latinos would not be where it is today. I've just had the ability to automate so much things without having to hire more people. And yes, we've still hired a lot more people. But for example, my team today is close to 45 people. If I didn't automate as much as I automate today, that team would probably be more like 70 people or 60 people. So combining technology and people is very, very important.
And no, thanks for that. I've not used that. I've used Zapier with a client before, but I've not used it for myself. And I just reminded myself when you said that, how important it is. I need to check that out in our processes. And I think, the same thing when I was helping people build real estate companies, or we were building processes, same thing. Anything we could process that we could make a repetitive over and over, it gave us more time to focus on higher dollar things, lead generation, or working with clients, more relationship based. So Zapier is Zapier something that then is more like a project management process, or is it something that also works in helping in media in some way? Does it give you any kind of AI or direction on where or what to do in your focus of where you've had efforts at before, or is it specifically more like a project management?
It's not even project management. It's more like, think about it, the back end part of your business. It's something that's just working 24 hours a day, constantly doing things all the time for you. Literally, it's, the technology, the machine that's doing a bunch of stuff in the background. Once you set it up, usually, unless you need to create more automation, you usually just leave it in the background and it just works wonders on its own, right? It is that perfect automation tool that's just all the time doing work for you. But yes, this is something that a lot of businesses are sort of, from my point of view, let's say, are afraid to dig into, whether it's to do it themselves or to hire somebody to do them, because it's something, completely different than what we do today. Like, for example, everybody's already used to social media, right? You wouldn't have to convince anybody to tell them to go get a social media platform and fill it with a bunch of content because it's good for business. Talking to someone about, hey, you should probably think about how to use automation to make your business better, probably not going to be an easy conversation because it's something foreign to them. People don't understand how it works, how it can benefit to them, and in a way, that's also the huge opportunity for using it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the process of then streamlining and duplicating efforts and automating things, and then for utilizing virtual assistants or your own team in that fashion. And obviously you're in the business of helping people add to their team so that they either from a cost standpoint or even from a time period where they have choice, saving on benefits, whatever it might be. Who are the ideal type companies or people that are ideal for virtual assistants, and who are some maybe that are not quite, in the right mix, or it hasn't been the right fit? Can you give some commentary on that?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say, and you haven't said anything wrong, but where we're trying to change, especially at least in our company, so we're trying to move away from the term virtual assistants, even though we still use it very much, to virtual professionals, because, and especially now that COVID has happened, everybody kind of realized, okay, a virtual assistant doesn't have to be just somebody doing admin work in the background, right? It can literally be any professional who's working remotely, right? And so today we have people from all over Latin America in terms of geographically, but also from all types of backgrounds. People with, at the minimum, a bachelor's degree to a master's degree to a PhD. People who are both medical doctors, electrical engineers, architects, a whole range of different backgrounds in terms of their professions and what they've studied. So that's the reason we're now trying to call them virtual professionals. And that came out of lots of conversations and feedback, but where many of the people who are working with us were like, I'm like a professional. I don't want to just go take an admin job and work like just doing admin work. That's boring, right? And then they realized once they joined that, yes, there's a lot of different things that are not just admin. But going back to the question, so who are virtual professionals for? So yes, naturally, many people think that it's usually for entrepreneurs or very small businesses that are trying to just figure out, how to save money. And they maybe don't want to hire people in the US because of the high cost, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, these days, our biggest clients are big companies that are law firms, biotech companies, healthcare, from all over the space, right? And so, yes, they're actually hiring virtual professionals, but not just for admin work, but for many other roles that are not what come to mind, let's say, initially, right? So yeah, virtual assistant, by definition, you have the assistant attached to it. So you think it's just they're helping you with like low-level stuff. Today, there's a lot of medium to high-level stuff, right? You can have an expert in SEO, search engine optimization for marketing. You can have an actual expert that's actually like a programmer. You can have a sales expert. You can have what we call legal virtual assistants. That's somebody specializing with legal-related tasks, right? So yes, initially, most of our clients were, let's say, one person business to 2-3 people. These days, we're helping all sorts of companies, no matter what their size is. Now, yes, they're not going to be big corporations, let's say like a Google or Facebook, because obviously all those people hire people, let's say in-house, not necessarily outsourcing all the time, even though they also have teams outside. But let's say at this point, I would say it'd be any company that has anywhere from, of course, being a team of 1 to 2, all the way to 50 or 100 people. I mean, we have now clients whose total team is about 100 or more, including both our virtual staff and their local staff, because it can also be a hybrid.
Got it. And I remember that you've got, like you said, if you want just an administrative person who can help on task and mundane things, you have the ability for that.
Sure.
But you also have marketers, digital marketers, expertise, people that have degrees in various things. And I think what's happened in the world that is, as it's evolved either digitally or virtually or in the e-commerce world of the gig economy, is just like what Uber did. It gave people who might have full-time jobs or part-time jobs another way to make income. And they'd say, hey, yeah, I'm a teacher during the day or a doctor, but I want to pick up some extra money or meet people. So in this scenario, so many people went working from home during COVID and probably got to adjust their schedules, maybe looked at their priorities of what they wanted to do. So I think it probably gave the whole world an opportunity to look at other ways to make income or use their talents or their skills, and obviously companies to potentially take advantage of those skills or tools. I also know that there's some nightmare stories. We were talking about on the break with our engineer here about some of the horror stories that have come with people that use virtual assistants and how to vet them, how to make sure you're getting not sloppy work or getting professionalism or getting a fair price, or worst case, they're not getting frauded or jacked around on something from people that are using it for some other scheme. So how have you seen some of those horror stories in the industry, and how does your company prevent people from having those experiences?
Yes, great question. So this has happened both to me and to many of our clients, which is both not so good, but also a blessing. On the one hand, for my end, so like I mentioned, I did hire people from the Philippines, and I know that there's a lot of great people in the Philippines, do not get me wrong, but there's definitely a lot of people out there. So naturally, there's always a percentage of those who are going to try to take advantage of, what's happening in the industry. So yeah, I got scammed and frauded, where I paid someone and they didn't actually do any of the work. And not only that, that person was defrauding more Filipinos because she was outsourcing work to other people who made them do work, and then she didn't pay them. So it was like a two-way fraud, which was horrible. I ended, money-wise, it was only $100 for me plus the PayPal fees at the time, which was really not that bad in terms of money when I see it now. But that negative experience plus another 2 negative experiences that I had for other reasons basically was the reason I was pushed in a way, or pushing myself to build a better solution, right? In this case, what we ended up building for Virtual Latinos. Now, initially, we built a directory, something very similar to the website that I use called onlinejobs.ph, which is really just like a job portal. So initially, Virtual Latinos was just that, a directory that you could just find the people on your own and hire them on your own. And the reason I did that is because I knew that as an entrepreneur, or I thought that I knew that I should just go hire on my own because I want to not have to hire through an agency to not pay a little more, right? So I did that, even knowing that it was a total waste of time when I did it on my own because it didn't actually work out. But somehow I thought that was going to be the right idea. And that ended up becoming more of a transition into the agency business, which goes back to your question, has that happened to other clients? Yes. Many clients come to us today saying, hey, listen, I worked with a company here or there, whether it's in the Philippines or somewhere else, and it hasn't been great, or the people that have been working haven't worked out, or whatever the reason is. People come looking for a better solution that they can trust, right? And I think trust is a big word that we should always try to remember and highlight in the online space, because when you're doing business online, trust is the most important thing. People are not seeing you face to face. They don't know if you have a physical place that they can go to and complain or something like that, right? It's all digital. So nobody really sees you face to face. Nobody knows each other as well as, let's say, that you used to when everybody lived in a small neighborhood, right? So having people trust you is a major thing. And that's something I learned and practiced through our marketing agency in terms of, what you put out there on your website and all your marketing materials. How can you make sure people trust you? So we're doing the same thing here in Virtual Latinos. We want to make sure people trust us. And the trust is hard to get. And once you break it, it's hard to gain back. So what I built in terms of the process to make sure that people that are going to go be hired through our company are not going to be doing fraud or bad things, I basically made the whole application process for our virtual assistants very long, very detail oriented. We test a lot of things without telling them exactly what we're testing, which is why we only accept 5% of everybody who applies. We make the process very hard, long, let's say boring, and tedious on purpose, because we want to just find the gems out there that are willing to put in the time, that are willing to be detail oriented, that are willing to do what it takes to be part of our community to begin with. And that's like the first stage. Once you've been finally accepted into our community, then yes, then we actually match those people with specific jobs. But yeah, actually that's been the biggest success of our company, where we moved away from the model where people hire on their own, because the same thing was happening. Even if they were Latinos and we were preventing them, people weren't sure who they were going to get. Now, when they hire through our agency and we, give them a guarantee that we're going to give you people that are good, and if not, we replace them, and we take care of everything so that they don't have to. And most importantly, we save people not only money, but time, right? The whole process lets people come to us. We explain to them everything, how it works. We interview the client for at least an hour, and we provide to them very specific candidates just for their role. Only 3 to 4. We don't give them 100 on purpose.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm sure that's a great peace of mind for those that might want to be trying Virtual Latinos and having this process to go through with Jaime. So hopefully people take you up on that. And I know as we're coming in and wrapping up this segment here in a few minutes, I know in addition to that of saving people time, which is what we all wanted, whether you're trying to automate things, create systems or processes, find more time in a day for your family or for what you love to do. So saving time is key. And I want to definitely come back on the next segment and talk some more about saving time. I also, in addition to that, skills is creating culture. And one of the topics that's very hot in everybody's business right now is over the last couple of years, businesses that had to go virtual because of mandate and working virtual, and how difficult it is to keep your team cohesive if people are running small, medium, or large teams. And how do you keep the team and the camaraderie growing and keep the culture of your company at a high level? And now many businesses have opted to possibly stay virtual, even if they're going to start lifting mandates at various times, as they already have, or doing a hybrid of giving a choice work environment for their staff. And I know we've got a slide here as we wrap up, slide 7, I think it is, for Joshua, that you have are the 5 key social skills to implement at work. So I want to just have you briefly talk on this, and then we'll come back and pick up on this after the next segment. But I want to talk about this virtual world and how business owners that maybe aren't using virtual professionals right now or virtual assistants, what are some of the skills that you have and the knowledge you have to help people get some tips to create a more cohesive work environment in a virtual experience, and to keep trust and to keep the quality of their product or service. So tell us about these 5 key social skills here for those that aren't seeing it. If you're listening on audio versus viewing this, these are, I'll just let Jaime read them off and
Sure.
and tell us why they're there for your group.
Yeah, sure. So here, I'm going to read them first. So it says 5 key social skills to implement at work. Number 1, empathy. Number 2, leadership. Number 3, listening to others. Number 4, assertive communication. And number 5, emotional intelligence. So yeah, these are very important skills. Obviously you're hiring and working with people, and you have to have really good social skills, ideally, to be able to be successful in, working in general. When it comes to working with anybody, whether it's remote or not remote, right? And I think part of what we try to tell our team, both internally as well as with our clients when we do the onboardings, which is part of the process that we do, is we gotta listen to each other and have empathy, right? We gotta try to put each other in each other's shoes and understand where everybody's coming from, to really understand what they're going through, to be able to help each other out. Leadership is a big important thing that we specifically talk about, because everybody who we accept, we want them to be leaders, to be in a way entrepreneurial, because we don't want people to be just waiting for them to be told what to do. I think that when people have the initiative to do things on their own, they really help our clients, and they help themselves. So I think leadership is a main important part of what we do. Listening to others in a way it's connected to empathy. Listening to others naturally, it's very, very important, because if you don't listen to what other people's needs are, you can't really figure out how to work together. So socially, sometimes listening is more important than talking, as many of you might know. Assertive communication, what that really meant is more about being direct in terms of, what it is that you're trying to achieve and what it is that you're trying to get done, so that people don't get confused and they don't have vague understanding. And, in the digital world, especially today, when working virtually, a lot of the communication is written. And sometimes written communication could be misinterpreted, or something that doesn't actually have like a Zoom video face-to-face might not be so easily understood. So we mean assertive by making sure that people understand what you really want, and make sure that there's no misunderstandings, and that people can understand what you're trying to get across. And emotional intelligence, the last one in the end, really is about being mature in terms of your emotions and how to handle yourself professionally, because again, you're not in a regular office, you're interacting with people both through text, video, audio, and you gotta emotionally know how to handle your emotions professionally, right? And being intelligent, and when to say things, when not to say certain things, especially in this virtual world.
That's great. Well, I want to come back and dig on emotional intelligence, and it fits in perfectly, because in the third segment, I like to talk about just that emotional intelligence. We all have the thing we've heard about IQ, EQ, and now artificial intelligence is a big piece of what everyone's doing that also flies into the digital world. And I also like to talk about spiritual intelligence. And I teased that at the beginning of the first segment about you're a Mexican Jewish man, and you have your own religious and spiritual beliefs. And I'm curious on how these principles in empathy, leadership, listening to others, assertive communication, emotional intelligence, and spiritual intelligence affect your success and growth in the workplace. I also want to come back on this next segment for those listening or viewing in, and dig a little bit deeper on how you do manage your business in a virtual world to keep expenses down, to keep your team cohesive, to keep your products and services at the top of the food chain, and to still stay relevant, and to most importantly, keep your culture, and to keep your vision, and to keep your mission. So how can you do all of those things? So let's come back and talk more with Jaime about that, because he does that all day, every day. And I'm sure that's affecting most of us. So we'll be right back on the Alchemy of Business Show. Hello, and welcome back to the Alchemy of Business Show. We're talking with Jaime here about a lot of things, including not only digital media, but virtual assistants. But we were starting to get into emotional intelligence as one of the key factors that he has as kind of the culture growing items in his company, along with listening and effective communication skills. But Jaime, popping you back on here to the screen and carrying on our conversation, one of the things we were wrapping up on this slide about how you have these 5 key principles, and one of the things you do either in culture or training is this a thing on emotional intelligence, which is really about, like you said, people handle a lot of different interactions when you're working as a virtual professional, and you're dealing with people's stress, tempers, humor. And
Yes.
so sometimes your own emotions, whether you have stuff going on at home, especially as people are working from home now,
Oh, yeah.
I have found that the emotions that people are dealing with, juggling kids, juggling dogs, juggling the delivery men, sometimes it's even more stressful to work at home because you've got two or three people working from home, spouses or whomever, and they're in the other room on Zoom. And so this emotional intelligence, let's talk about that. And I want to roll into that with some of this talk also about artificial intelligence and then spiritual intelligence. So how are you getting people aware of how to be, number one, aware of their emotional intelligence, but how do people manage that? How do you help them in your training, your group conversations, your team meetings? How do you help people manage their emotional intelligence?
Sure. So as I was speaking before, we've made our process kind of long and very detailed on purpose. So we have people definitely fill out, let's say, a regular application with a bunch of questions, including open-ended questions. But then we make them go through more hoops. One of those hoops is something that we built, which I'll share here. That when you're going through a website and then you're like, oh yeah, I just need to say that I read the terms and conditions, and nobody does. So because I wanted to save time to make sure that people really understood part of the culture of Virtual Latinos as well as how it works, I definitely wanted people to read some documentations before they agreed to be part of the community. And of course, nobody did. And then we had all these problems because once they were hired, we were like, okay, you're supposed to know this. Oh yeah, but I didn't really read it. So we ended up making a little quiz that people have to pass 100%. And then it became a really crazy thing within our community because it's not very complex. We give people the links of where the answers are, and then it's a 20 or 16 or 18, 16 to 20 question thing. And we make sure that people have to spend the right time patiently to read things thoroughly. And then we ask them, the questions that are very simple questions in my personal opinion, but definitely part of the things that they have to read when it comes to emotional intelligence is, how to be a good member of the virtual community within Virtual Latinos, how they represent not only our company, but all Latinos in general, how many things that they need to read about how to succeed as a remote worker, because many of the people who come to us have never worked remotely other than COVID. So there's a big shift in mindset in terms of like, hey, I just go to an office and I work, as opposed to, hey, suddenly in a way, I'm an entrepreneur. And even though I'm still having to work for someone, I really have my own computer, my own setup. There's a lot of things that you have more flexibility on. So we need to really kind of have that shift in their mindsets in terms of what it really means to work as a virtual assistant, which is actually why, other than that quiz and that whole things that we ask them to do, we actually have an onboarding. It's a required thing every assistant has to do. It's a 30 to 45 minute one-on-one live meeting with our customer success team that basically we teach them, even though we assume they read whatever we ask them to, we still actually go over it and we tell them, how to do a lot of time tracking, how to communicate with clients, how to expect to be communicating with them, whether it's through voice notes or through text or through email. So we really coach them and we want to make sure that they can actually be ready to be as successful as possible, right? And that's for all of the assistants that work with our clients in general. Internally, for all the team that works with us, we've also done a lot of sessions where, every 2 weeks we meet with the entire team of 40 plus people, and I'm very open about the importance of communication, because everything online is communication, right? So we just talk about it as much as we can.
That's great. Well, and a lot of people listening in are all either working virtually themselves or their teams are. So as people are building their teams, in addition to being aware of this emotional intelligence, and the testing thing on the quizzes is always fun because it's kind of like trust but verify. And then as you mentioned, coaching. We can all use coaching moments. And when people have an episode with another fellow employee, an associate, a client, using that to help them along in that process. So when people are now in this world that we've been forced to go virtually in, do you have any additional tips for leaders, for managers, for business owners that are other things they can do to work on keeping their team cohesive, focus the eye on the ball, and keeping also their core values of their mission and their value proposition that they have within their organization? What are some things others can do? And, they may be things you're doing as well, but I'd like to have a little bit of chat about that in the reality of the world we live in right now.
Sure. So one of the things that we're trying to also change, or not change, but make something better. And for those who don't know, most virtual assistants are hired as contractors, not as employees, for all the benefits of hiring people as contractors. So for that reason, from a legal point of view, you don't have to pay them vacations, you don't have to pay them bonuses, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. So we've made a decision already a long time ago that we give our team lots of what we call perks as opposed to benefits, in terms of making sure that people know that we care about them, that they're part of our business. They're not just somebody that we're having them do some work and that's it. They are part of the team. They are part of our organization, and everybody's very important. So from a business perspective, we have a whole set of perks that in our specific case, for example, we created a whole range of different perks that they get as they stay longer with the company, right? And that's something we can talk about it later. But going back to the question, what can people do to make sure that the community and the culture stays as best as possible? So right now we're implementing the process of a book called Traction, about the entrepreneurial operating system. Maybe you've heard about it. It's a book that somebody recommended me a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a really great book, and we're putting it in place into the company now. And it's really good to put it into the company now, because when we were a small company with like 10 people, everything was just very organic. We all knew each other. It was really easy, right? Now we're like more than 40. Not everybody knows each other. Maybe not everybody read about the values. We're not talking about them as much because we're too many people. So now we're going through this process of really defining our values, defining our goals. And even though we already had them and we have them in our website and all these things we share, now we want people to really talk about them, for people to really understand, so that we're all on the same page. And I can tell you that it's been definitely very hard. We've had multiple sessions internally in the team where we keep talking about what's our goal and what's the best way to write it for the long term. And it's been hard because you want to make sure that it's going to be something that we can keep for as long as possible once we've defined many of these things. So yes, other than that process, we actually separately, non-work related, once a month we have basically like a social optional thing where people can just come and we do lots of just activities and things that are just fun, nothing to talk about work. And that's very hard. So especially when working remotely, whether it's remotely in the same city or remotely across the world, having that human social part that's not work related, it's very important, because we see the more time we spend on making people happy with each other and getting to know themselves as people, not as workers, makes a huge difference in how they work as teams.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, and I've seen a lot of people do fun things like that with this virtual thing of having virtual coffees together, having virtual cocktail hours where people get their favorite beverage they get back on after work, and they have some kind of a group thing, or they'll do watch famous clips of movies and talk about them while people are having their wine or their beverage. There was somebody that in the heart of COVID had a baby shower, or they did a whole virtual baby shower on Zoom. So I think having those interactions where you can have some fun with your people and also continue to remind them, like you said, of what your mission statement are, your core values, and getting them involved in the process so they understand what that means. The book that I finished last year called The Iggy Principles, which is about inviting good in versus edging good out, or staying out of your ego, which is edging good out or God out, versus the opposite of inviting it in. I talk in the book about the principles of these simple steps of forgiveness, acceptance, paying it forward, prayer and meditation. And how can you make those things available to employees that allow them time or space for additional education or for self-development or for yoga time or whatever it might be? So in your perks or benefits, as companies are looking at building culture or creating more connection with emotional intelligence, some of these things we have to be the leaders of, that we're implementing those and showing that it's okay to have importance of family and importance of spirituality. In this intelligence space, obviously I mentioned early artificial intelligence. We were talking earlier about digital media, social media, connecting processes. What are you seeing in the world of AI or artificial intelligence that also is helping people to automate, to streamline, to customize, to save time? So any feedback on that topic?
Sure. So it's definitely a hot topic, as you already mentioned. We ourselves have a little algorithm that we built for prioritizing how we accept applicants. So for example, internally, let's say in a simple process, we would process whoever came in first, and whoever came in last, we would process them last, right? But then it got to a point that we realized, hey, we're just processing people the way they come. That's not necessarily the best way, because if we had an algorithm that can give us a probability of checking somebody that's better, even if they just applied, versus somebody that applied a long time ago, let's come up with a little artificial intelligence, right? So now I'm not sure whether the right terminology is it really artificial intelligence or not, or is just a really good algorithm. That's to be defined, right? But the point is we have put some technology in place already internally, so that our team who processes applications, we divide all the applicants into 5 groups: the top 20%, the second top 20, and then the next 20%. And so we always process people who are in the top 20%, regardless of when they come in terms of their application. And that algorithm keeps getting better as we have more and more data from everybody that we process, right? That's like a really simple AI, but we definitely believe that we're going to need to put more artificial intelligence into our process if we want to stay competitive. And I can tell you that that's probably the connection between AI and like, why should people use AI, right? And I think that having a competitive advantage is one of the main reasons. I can tell you that just in the last 2 years alone, because of COVID, I mean, virtual assistant companies are popping up like mushrooms everywhere. Like every week, I'm sending my team everything we find of more competitors that are coming into the space. So of course, we ask ourselves, what do we need to keep doing to make sure that we're always going to be relevant, that we're always going to be the best possible choice for what our focus is, and in a way, not only being efficient with regular, let's say, simple automation, that's what Zapier does, but putting into a higher level intelligence to do decisions for us is the next step.
Yeah, that's true. I'm seeing it in everything, of course, even some of the stuff we don't realize it's in, whether it's stuff on Amazon or in my medical stuff, or in figuring out what I should buy, where people, so artificial intelligence of this really looking through to try and make our lives easier. It is a lot about looking at like Big Brother watching sometimes. It's you might have looked at something on Facebook, and 2 or 3 days later, or within that day, you get an ad popping up about a camping site or a pair of shoes that you thought so I mean, this piece of this artificial intelligence of technology, looking at data, looking at patterns, looking at trends, looking how we post, looking what we are interested online about, or giving us suggestions and tips of chat boxes that come in and use FAQs and Q&As to help answer many of your questions that can help you through the process. So I do find it's pretty fascinating, and I think it's going to become more and more in not only media, but digital media, communications, and many of the things you talked about staying in communication with your consumer or within your employee base. And then how do we put that human element on top of that artificial intelligence so that they're getting that heart and soul and purpose of how do we take this AI and not turn it into a cold, harsh kind of connection, but it really is a way to have a little bridge until you have time to get to have that heart soulful connection.
Let me give you a quick example, because
go ahead.
We're building right now a chatbot, because the volume of assistants that apply, we're very blessed, is very high, and people ask a lot of questions, many of the same questions. So we ended up hiring somebody to build a chatbot, and he's just trying to build it from a technical perspective, right? And I was like, okay, like this is great, but one thing I hate is when I know I'm talking to a chatbot and I don't want to, and I want to get a human, and there's no way to get a human. It's the worst customer experience that you can have, in my opinion. So I told them very much, you have to make this chatbot be very smart, so that when it obviously can't answer the question, it has to ask the question, would you like to speak to a human? Or I should be able to type in human, and you need to connect me to the humans from our team, right? Because I very much believe in the right connection between both.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you have to have that bridge, because it's one thing. And in the real estate space that I was in for years, agents got very nervous about technology, and because technology is going to replace real estate agents. Technology is going to replace real estate agents. I said, look, guys and gals, technology is not going to replace real estate agents, but agents with technology are going to replace real estate agents, no doubt about it. There's 100%. Certain things that really just have to have that human touch, and that is absolutely one of them. And then we got about 4 or 5 minutes left here in the space. And I want to roll into this art. We talked about emotional intelligence and intellect and artificial intelligence. I'm always fascinated by spiritual intelligence, because the more and more I see technology evolving, like bots and AI and all this communication, as cool and as fascinating it is, I still kind of chuckle about how remedial it is in a kindergarten way compared to what some higher universal power has created by making the planets go in the right way, and the tides come in and out, and the sun rise and fall, and babies being born, just that whole thing of the intelligence about higher consciousness. So you mentioned earlier about your Jewish and your Mexican, and so I'm curious, do you define yourself as religious Jewish? Do you consider yourself as not identified in religious with Jewish? Do you consider yourself a spiritualist? What's your definition
Great.
of your own spirituality or your religion?
Yes, I'll give you first a 30-second answer for that. So when I came to the US, I only knew that I was a Jewish person. That's it, right? I mean, my nationality was Mexican. Now I'm also US, but I was just a Jew, right? And suddenly I came to the US and I realized there's like 10 types of Jews. I'm like, why? Why is there 10 types of Jews? That's like something very American. So, but to answer the question, I grew up, let's say, how most people outside the US grow up in terms of being Jewish. Were you just Jewish? And that usually means you get to be taught the Orthodox Jewish way. Then you get to choose what to do or not to do. So I would call myself a traditional Jew, which means I'm not Orthodox. I don't follow most of the religious stuff, but I'm very much a traditionalist. So we do many of the traditions, which includes, for example, Shabbat dinner, which is Friday nights. We have a family dinner. We do a little Hebrew prayer, and it's family time. All the Jewish holidays and stuff like that. So I've always grew up very traditional, and even within my family, people even make fun of me. It's like, oh, you're too old school, too traditional, right? So it's both my total tech side and automation and all that part of my business. With at the same time, now I'm a father of two daughters. One of them is almost 3. The other was like 5 months, and like, yes, I'm still very much connected to my spiritual side, and I'm looking at my daughters, and I tell my wife, it's like, wow, like I can't believe that we as humans can create these things. It's obviously that there's a higher power. I mean, I believe that there's a God. I definitely think that it's more of the energy part that connects everything that's a living thing, regardless of what the religion is. And yeah, I definitely think that it's amazing that things such as babies can exist and they can grow and they can change. So I'm always connected to that part of myself. My father, even though he was never, let's say, religious, he was also even more traditional and did a lot more thing that are very, let's say, Jewish that he doesn't do today. But I've always been connected to my Judaism, to Israel. So that's always been a part of me that I always keep very close to heart.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by religions. I study the Eastern, the Western, the different ones. I was brought up very strict Catholic. I don't practice in that way anymore because I'm more of a spiritualist and believe in a lot more universal principles. But I was always understanding the importance of having commitment, having ritual, having a practice, having a discipline, because that, just like you were talking about in our businesses, having automation, having a system, having processes in our lives of our own growth from a spiritual perspective or doing the right thing. And just having that practice, it makes us at least pause and take time to give thanks or gratitude or do the right thing for something higher than ourselves. And what I learned long ago is I definitely do believe in a higher power, and I do believe there's something greater than ourselves. And I for sure know it's not me. So I'm a part of that energy and I'm a part of that being, but I'm always fascinated to know that there's way more past than one, and that this energy that we can utilize doing good in our businesses and paying it forward is key. So it looks like you're doing a lot of that in your world of passing that on and passing on your good. So I want to make sure that the listeners here know how to get a hold of you and learn more about you. I think we've got a slide here, but why don't you tell us the best ways for people to reach you or to learn about your company? And we'll have the slide up for those, and we'll put it in the show notes as well, so those that can see your contact info.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to learn more about it, let's say me specifically and kind of what I'm into, which is this whole automation and connecting and outsourcing to people, you can look at my website, JaimeNacach.com, and the link will be down there. The website of the actual company is virtuallatinos.com, as well as on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can just look up the 2 words Virtual Latinos, and you can also find me on LinkedIn with my first and last name. Up until today, I'm the only guy with that name. So yeah, you can definitely look me up in there. And if you want to reach out to me directly, I'd love to. It's my first name, Jaime @virtuallatinos.com.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime. And I know we didn't get a chance to talk about your charitable work that you like to also contribute. I know you're involved in orphanage mentors, where you like to help kids that are a little underprivileged, and your company focuses on that. And those that want to learn more about his academy that he's building also for Virtual Latinos to learn more about growth and different topics and how to be specific. So there's a lot more you can find out about Jaime on his website and about Virtual Latinos. And I want to thank you for your time, your energy, and helping share with entrepreneurs, business leaders, and businesses about how to maximize their internal gifts that they already had, and how can they make those gifts and their tools and their talents even more effective so they can spend more time on what they love to do, and not just work, but also spending more time when you save that time on family and in what you love and finding your passion and your joy. So thank you so much for Jaime for joining us on the show. Any last words of wisdom before we sign off?
Yes, I want to tell you that one of the things that makes me the happiest is that, I've always wanted to do things that are not just for business and making money, but also the ability to help a lot of people, right? So I'm really blessed to say that in our company, there's a three-way win-win-win situation. Usually somebody's sort of feeling like they're being taken advantage, but in this case, the assistants are making a lot more money, so they're happier. The clients are saving lots of money, so they're super happy. And we as a company can also win as a company. So I'm just really blessed that we're able to be in a business that not just is here for the profit, but actually helps a lot of people. And our reviews from our clients and assistants show us that, and we love that. We're really helping people.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime. Well, thank you all that listened in, and thank you, Joshua, for show engineering here today behind the scenes. And thank you for those, again, listening in or viewing in here on the Alchemy of Business, where we are helping people make wiser decisions, find ways to make higher profits in their life and in their business, and most importantly, finding higher purpose and higher meaning. Come back and join us. If you like the show, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up and a like. We'll be having more guests, quality like Jaime here. So thank you very much for listening in. Make it a fantastic day. Thank you very much, Jaime. Thanks, everybody.
So much.
Take care.
And that concludes this episode of The Alchemy of Business with your host, Steve Rogers. If you found value in today's broadcast, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing with friends, and leaving a review. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next Thursday for another episode. Be blessed and see you soon.